Yes, I see that you know your judo well.
You're messing with my Zen thing, man.
Woo! Get some!
All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Jake Uranik is bearing with you guys. Fascinating day. Lots of ruckus in the Capitol, and I like it. Jamal Bowman, who I'm now going to start calling the principal. The principal's walking the hallways and regulating.
You're really great with branding. Who doesn't want to be called the principal?
Well, first of all, he was a principal. So
I know, but still.
No, but the principal regulates, okay? And he has to in Washington because there's a bunch of children.
A ton of
I knew
children.
you'd like that. Okay, now we're warming up to the principal. Anyway, that's coming up in a little bit. DeSantis gets clowned by a mouse. Trump jumps on it, and he jumps eating it. So lots of news, tons of fun in today's show, including in the bonus episode where you guys are gonna see this video that you're gonna love, okay? Democracy Manifest. All right.
Well, speaking of children, we begin with a few. Let's do it.
Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries went on TV this morning to reject the GOP plan to add work requirements to some welfare programs, calling that a non-starter. So the president left for Asia with a message of reassurance that he won't do anything of consequence.
President Joe Biden is likely to concede to Republicans on the debt ceiling deal, even though he doesn't have to. Biden is so pathetic that House GOP is openly mocking him. And if you don't believe me, you're about to see it. Let's watch.
But look at how House Republicans received that message.
But he also said on work requirements, he'd accept not anything of any consequence. Where does that?
Loser. I don't understand anything that has consequence. This is a senator who voted for work requirements.
This is a senator who voted for work requirements. And honestly, that is the most painful part of watching that video, because not only is it incredibly embarrassing to have a weak president who already had capitulated to Republican demands back in 2011, it appears that he is poised to do so yet again. And Cenk, I mean, it's incredible how many of your predictions and my predictions tend to come to fruition.
Yeah.
So why don't you open up the conversation to that?
Yeah. So look, I got this one right, but and we often do, and that's not bragging. I know it sounds like bragging.
No, we should definitely brag.
Okay, I hear you.
Yeah.
But guys, you get it right too, and I see it in your comments because we figured out something super simple. It's always the money. Money always wins. The rest of it is just theater. It's just theater. So it's not at all complicated. You're all gonna get the predictions right too, okay? Unfortunately, people who buy into the theater don't get it right. Oh my God, Joe Biden is gonna fight the Republicans. No, of course not, that's ridiculous. He's gonna give them whatever they want on it because both of their donors agree. They wanna make sure that you guys don't get any help and they get all of the money, not just a little of the money, okay? So, and then he said he wasn't gonna negotiate on the debt ceiling. We told you he would. Of course he's negotiating on the debt ceiling because it's not just that Biden is weak, and he is, and I'll get to that in a second. But it's mainly that he's complicit. Like, he wanted to cut spending, he wanted an excuse to cut spending, and so they invented the debt ceiling thing, which since Trump didn't do it at all, like there was no negotiating debt ceiling under Trump, he should have just pa-ting, just flicked it off his shoulder and be done with it. But he's He wants to cut it. He voted for cutting spending throughout his entire career. He is a conservative, Democrat, but really on economic issues, totally Republican. And then they said, oh, he is not gonna do the work requirements. So we told you he's gonna do the work requirements. Of course he's gonna do it, because he wants to do it. Understand that, but he's also weak. Because that when they laugh in his face, and one of the Republican congressmen there said, loser.
Oh, God.
Because they made him accept the work requirements, and then they're rubbing it in his face.
That's right.
And do you think that Biden's gonna man up and fight back? There's a 0% chance of that. He's gonna give them exactly what he wants, because that's who he is.
Well, if you want to see weak for yourself, here's the moment from President Joe Biden's press conference that reporters were reacting to and asking about. Let's take a look.
I'm not going to accept any work requirements that's going to impact on medical health needs of people. I'm not going to accept any work requirements that go much beyond what is already. Well, I voted years ago for the work requirements that exist, but it's possible there could be a few others, but not anything of any consequence.
And here is more of McCarthy and his fellow Republicans reacting to that statement.
If he doesn't want to have something that has consequences, he wants to borrow more money from China to pay an able-bodied person who has no dependents, not even to look for a job, not even go to school for 20 hours.
And now we're seeing some congressional Democrats put out signals that they won't just swallow whatever Biden agrees to. Congressman Ro Khanna saying he'll consider whatever the president proposes, but he'll vote how he sees fit. And he's trying to redirect potential cuts away from welfare to defense, saying that is where bigger savings could be achieved.
And that's true. I mean, if they're genuinely concerned about the bloated budget and if they want to cut spending, the first place they should look is the military, where we are now spending more than $800 billion a year. And there is so much waste in the Pentagon that they can't even pass a simple audit. They have failed every single audit that has happened over the last several years. And one other thing I want to just quickly mention is the work requirements have not worked. And we have specific examples. I have some data that I'm gonna get to in just a moment. But before we get to that, and it's really important for you all to know how that works out and how it actually ends up costing the government more money, I do wanna just kind of talk about fairly recent history, 2011, when Biden struck a deal as vice president under the Obama administration with Republicans on something known as the Budget Control Act, okay? The Budget Control Act was something that Republicans demanded at the time. They were holding the debt ceiling hostage just as they are right now. And they're like, we want to cut funding, right? So that bill passed. And what it did is it led to austerity on major social spending programs for 10 years straight. And that was a huge consequence for the American people.
Yeah, Biden's been giving things away to Republicans his entire career. He also struck a deal in the Obama administration where he made tax cuts for the rich permanent. Even George W. Bush couldn't do that, but he gave that to Mitch McConnell as a gift because Biden is a Republican on economic issues. They all serve their donors, but no one in media will tell you that. Okay, so I'm gonna show you the receipts in a little bit so you know that we're not kidding when we say, yeah, we got this right? And I'll tell you whether Ro Khanna and Hakeem Jeffries are being honest or not. But I want to say one more thing about how you guys can see for yourself when they're lying and what they're actually going to do, okay? So when the minute Biden says, well, we'll have to make sure that to take care of the medical needs of people when talking about work requirements, the translation to that is I'm going to give in on work requirements and I'm going to make a tiny little exception for people with medical disabilities or something along those lines so that I could save face and pretend that I had a real negotiation with them when I'm actually giving them 99% of what they want. Right. And you'll see this over and over again. And so back when Obama was going through Obamacare, progressives pushed him to do the public option. It was incredibly popular, but he didn't want to do it because his donors told him under no circumstance are you allowed to do that. And so he said, we'd like to do the public option. It's going to be difficult, of course. And I said, look, that means they're definitely not doing it. And everyone in media was like, you're again outrageous. How dare you say that? He said he's gonna try. No, when a Democrat says they're gonna try, that means ironically, they are not going to try. Biden did the same exact thing with $15 minimum wage. Oh, it's gonna be difficult, but I guess we'll give it a shot. That's a signal to the Republicans, I'm ready to concede on that, okay? So, but every reporter knows this. How come they don't tell you? It drives me nuts, right? So now we go to Ro Khanna and Hakeem Jeffries. So, and by the way, when I say receipts on we were right, in this case it might be literal since looks like I might win money.
Yeah, you are gonna win money. Do you wanna go to that video right now?
Okay, let's go to that first and then I'll come back to it. So look, this is me and Emma, we're just having fun, okay? And Emma thought that that they might do the deal without work requirements because everyone on the Democratic side claims that they will not accept work requirements. Hakeem Jeffries was super clear, is now the top Democrat in the House. It's a non-starter. So I don't blame Emma, but I thought, hey, you should never trust Democratic leadership. They'll never do what they're gonna say, and for all the reasons that I explained. So we had this fun little bit earlier in the week. So I said very confidently that they would have work requirements in the negotiations on the debt ceiling. You say no.
Yeah.
$100?
$100. We're doing it.
Here we go.
There we go.
Okay, I love these bets.
I like gambling, obviously, if anyone watches my show.
She does, and she's a great sport about it, and I'm looking forward to the $100. It's not over, by the way. Emma could still be right. Now, for example, if Hakeem Jeffries actually means a word of what he says, he could just turn around to Biden and said, I think you misunderstood me. I said it's a non-starter, okay?
Yeah.
And he's the top Democrat in the House, but he's a liar. He's definitely not gonna fight Biden, and they're definitely gonna put in the work requirements, and Hakeem Jeffries isn't gonna do a goddamn thing about it.
So one other thing that I wanted to just bring up, because I thought it was an interesting proposal, I just doubt that Biden is going to take Democrats' advice on this. But today, several Democratic senators, progressive senators, held a press conference led by Senator Bernie Sanders. And what he is arguing, along with 11 total Democratic senators who have signed this letter to Biden, is that he should invoke the 14th Amendment in order to raise the debt ceiling and just basically not allow the Republican Party to hold the debt ceiling hostage. So it's section 4 of the 14th Amendment, and it talks about the United States debt, the validity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law, including debts incurred for payment of pensions and bounties for services in suppressing insurrection or rebellion shall not be questioned.
Yeah, look, guys, it's a no-brainer. If I was advising the president, I'd tell him, don't do the 14th Amendment right away. I would say first beat the living crap out of the Republicans for this.
Agreed.
I say a bunch of deadbeats don't want to pay their debt. Look, we all as Americans believe in personal responsibility. We accrued this debt together, okay? And now they say, well, I want to be a deadbeat. I want to be a loser and not pay our debts, right? And I want to crash the entire global economy. And I want to make the working class pay for it because they're the ones that are going to lose their jobs. Go ahead, Republicans, say it. Say it 1,000 times. I do a press conference every single day. And I bash the living crap out of them politically and rhetorically, which Biden would never do because he loves Republicans. Instead, he's giving them a giant gift. And then I would use the 14th Amendment. Because that's what a strong person does, that's what an honest person does. But Biden isn't either one of those. And by the way, just to complete the thought on Ro Khanna is a good, earnest man, and I like his proposal of taking it from defense instead. Of course it has a 0% chance. Both the corporate Republicans and the corporate Democrats would never touch the defense budget or raising taxes for the rich, because they serve the rich and they serve defense contractors. So that's why it's a good policy by Ro Khanna, but it has no chance of success because almost all of his colleagues are totally corrupt and agree with the Republicans.
Okay, now I want to just quickly tell you why work requirements is incredibly, it's incredibly dumb if the genuine goal by these Republicans is to cut spending. It actually ends up becoming far more expensive and does not do much in encouraging people to work, because the majority of people who, for instance, in the case of Arkansas, which tried this experiment, they tried to have work requirements in regard to Medicaid recipients in the state. And it was such a disaster that the program didn't even last 2 years. It was struck down by a judge before the 2 years were up. The other thing I want to just quickly mention is we don't know exactly what the work requirements are going to be tied to. There are some reports indicating that Republicans want the work requirements tied to SNAP benefits. Other reports say that it could have to do with Medicaid. We don't know yet. And what's really interesting is that we haven't really seen any proposal from the Republican Party, just this effort to push for austerity. And remember, this is the same party that provided cover for Donald Trump, who actually blew up our budget and increased the deficit to the tune of $8 trillion. And of course, he's the one who passed the tax cuts for the rich to the tune of $2 trillion over a decade. So with that said, let's go to Arkansas and see how their little experiment went. Didn't go well. So this was research done. It's really, really good research. The title of it, well, look up Summers et al. And you'll find the research. It's open for everyone to read. But in June of 2018, Arkansas became the first state to implement work requirements in Medicaid, requiring adults ages 30 to 49 to work 20 hours a week, participate in community engagement activities, or qualify for an exemption to maintain coverage. Now, by April of 2019, a federal judge put the policy on hold, and then later it was struck down. So didn't work out so well. Work requirements did not increase employment over 18 months of follow-up. And over 95% of Arkansas beneficiaries in our survey already met the state's Medicaid work requirements or should have been eligible for an exemption. This suggests that barriers to reporting data to the state rather than not meeting the requirements themselves was the main cause for coverage losses in 2018. So they only had one avenue in which people could report their employment, and it was through the internet. And like, not everyone has a computer. There might be some older Medicaid recipients who aren't as savvy with technology. So that was a huge barrier. And in the end, it ended up costing the state more money because remember, you have to have an apparatus in place in order to do the reporting, have them report their employment in order to enforce the policy. So it ended up costing the state money. Any consideration of work requirements in Medicaid should consider administrative costs as well. Implementation of this policy cost an estimated $26.1 million, with 17% of the cost paid for by the state and 84% paid for by the federal government.
Yep. So look, Republicans want to paint the average man as a bum. And if you remember, Mitt Romney said the 47% of the country never wants to work. They're just the takers. Paul Ryan would say that all the time. This is not a Trump thing. This is a Republican Party thing, and it's been here for decades. Why? Because they don't want any money spent on the average American. They want all the money to go to the tax cuts for the rich. So for example, over this debt ceiling fight, people suggested, hey, why don't we take it back some of the Trump tax cuts and then we could pay for it easily, no problem, right? They go, oh, no. So the richest people in the world should never be challenged. We should never take a dime from them. But if you're poor and you need help, you need a hand up for a second, Republicans are here to call you bums. None of the facts ever back them up. They know that. They don't care about the facts. It's propaganda meant to help their rich donors.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, we'll tell you about how Nancy Pelosi is engaging in elder abuse in order to be a kingmaker.
Literal. TYT, let's go to YouTube Super Chat first. Kristen Eckert wrote in with a personal story, and those are always important and interesting. Kristen wrote, I'm a recovering opioid addict. If Biden makes addicts in outpatient treatment do work requirements, our opioid problem will get 1,000 times worse. Trust me, I live this life. Kristen, I do trust you, and but Biden, I know mainstream media gaslights you 24/7, like as if he cares a lot about you. He doesn't care about you at all. The one promise that he made, that he means, is the promise he made to his donors that nothing would fundamentally change. And so that's what he's delivering on. Those are the only people he cares about. If it wasn't for mainstream media gaslighting, you would all know that. Shane, the whole country would know it. Shane McAndrew says, on an unrelated note, all the Hillary supporters who woke scolded Bernie went silent when it came to Biden's obvious social failings. No, they'll find a way to blame Bernie for it anyway, right? It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. Look, honestly, the mainstream media is way better at propaganda than Fox News is. Because Fox News is a blunt instrument. They're so obvious what they're doing. Mainstream media is way more subtle and way more effective at getting you to believe in corporate Democrats and corporate Republicans as they rob you blind over and over and over again. And they're like, what? Oh, Biden is helping cut from the average man and give to the rich again for the literally like the 100th time in his career. Golly gee, he's a great progressive. I didn't notice. You really? Well, then you should all be fired. Axel Legault says the Republicans laughed so hard because they knew their wallets were going to be filled by messing with the lives of Americans. Yeah, of course, of course. Mohit Baki says, hi, Cenk and Anna. I just saw this week's Old School and loved it. I love the clip of the Australian man getting arrested, and it needs to see it, and also it needs to be on Old School more often. That second part is very true. But the first part is mission accomplished. Wait for the bonus episode. We're gonna have more fun with that clip. If you haven't seen it, it's a great reason to become a member because we have a lot of fun on the bonus episode, a lot of fun in members shows like Old School, tyt.com/join, or if you're on YouTube, you hit the join button below. Let me go to members on our website. Turkosaurus Rex says, Cenk is right. The most infuriating thing about normie Democrats is that they don't see why progressives can't stand Biden. They think he walks on water and any criticism of him is tantamount to voting for Trump.
Yes.
Shake my head.
Yes.
I mean, it's not that complicated. Trump is terrible, Biden is no good. Oh my God, I can't understand simple concepts. Oh, so if you're saying Biden is not honest, that means you think Trump is king. No, it doesn't mean that at all. I'm sorry if you grew up on the New York Times and by the way, like I did, but they're brainwashing you into this crap. Uriah Heep says, you know what? Crash the debt, they don't have the balls to do it. Why in the name of God do we have to go through this time and time again? Because the Democrats agree with the Republicans. They just use it as theater. That's why.
It wasn't always like this, right? It wasn't always the case that it was up to Congress to raise the debt ceiling.
It was never a thing. It was just a thing that they invented, I think during the Obama years, if my memory serves me right. I'd never heard it before in covering politics. I was like, what is this debt ceiling?
I remember reading about how many times the debt ceiling was raised under the Reagan administration.
No, but it was never an issue. You just raised the debt ceiling.
Yeah, no, I know. But I think it used to be like the Federal Reserve or something that would raise the debt ceiling. It was outside of Congress, if I'm not mistaken.
Back on TOT, I got to read one member comment here. Mickey C. the Silver Dragon said, the Republicans all bursting out in laughter really pissed me off, and not at the Republicans.
Yep, I totally agree.
You couldn't agree more, that's why I read it. You know, Mickey always comments with great comments. We appreciate her and we appreciate all our members, but that really nailed it, because this is visceral. When they started laughing at Biden, we all know that Biden's not gonna fight back. And it really angered me that we have so-called representatives on our so-called side who are at best the weakest people in America. Give me one strong actual Democrat and we'll change the whole country.
All right, let's move on to yet another story where Cenk's predictions proved to be correct. So, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is likely engaging in elder abuse so she can play kingmaker in the Senate, and that's according to insiders who spoke to Politico. Now, the story revolves around Senator Dianne Feinstein, who we all know needs to retire immediately. She returned to the Senate after being absent for 2.5 months with a really bad shingles condition. When she was speaking to reporters recently and they asked about her time away, she seemed to have forgotten that she was away and denied it, said that she was in the Senate working the entire time. And of course, she has missed some pretty critical votes to confirm judges. Now, why hasn't the Democratic senator retired? She is not doing well. Well, Politico reports that there was a clue on the day that she returned to the Senate because she was accompanied by a woman named Corinne Prada. And if you're wondering who she is, she's actually the oldest daughter of Nancy Pelosi's. Now, when Feinstein returned to the Senate last week, she was accompanied by Prada. Apparently, Prada has been basically living with Feinstein and playing a big role in the senator's life ever since her husband passed away. And not only did she escort Feinstein around Capitol Hill last week, she was again at her side yesterday, helping aides surround the senator in Capitol Hill as reporters were trying to ask her questions. Now, apparently, Pelosi is acutely aware of just how bad Feinstein's condition is. But when Congressman Ro Khanna, and Dean Phillips, by the way, called on her to retire because clearly she's experiencing significant mental decline and now you can see physical decline as well, Nancy Pelosi responded with the statement, quote, "I've never seen them go after a man who was sick in the Senate." Yeah, but we don't have, as far as I know, there's no male in the Senate right now who is unable to perform their duties due to permanent mental decline, due to honestly old age, right? Well, it turns out that Nancy Pelosi has a stake in the game. So let's talk about that a little bit. Politico writes this: Pelosi has endorsed Representative Adam Schiff, her longtime protege and former handpicked House Intelligence Committee chair, to succeed Feinstein after her 6th and final term ends next year. Schiff is a household name in California and already has a $15 million campaign cash advantage over his nearest competitor. And so I want to go to a video featuring our very own Cenk Uygur, where he shares a bit of a prediction with us.
Why don't the Democrats replace her? It's easy. Governor Newsom would do it. He's a Democrat. It's the easiest thing in the world, because they don't want a progressive in there, and they're worried that anyone, by definition, will be more progressive than Dianne Feinstein, because both her, when she was of sound mind, and apparently her chief of staff, who's now the current senator, are both deeply conservative. So they're like, oh, we love that. So they just want to keep a corporate Democrat in there. And by the way, what did the Democrats ever do anyway? Nothing. So they're like, what do we need her for? We don't do anything. So the judicial nominations, some people are a little upset about. So let's pretend that we care about that, but not actually do anything, which is, of course, the route that they have settled on.
All right, so keep those words in your mind as I give you some more reporting from Politico. But if Feinstein were to bow to pressure and retire early, Adam Schiff's advantage would disappear. Governor Gavin Newsom has pledged to appoint a black woman to serve out her term, and one of Schiff's declared opponents, Representative Barbara Lee, would fit the bill. If Dianne Feinstein, they call her Di-Fi, resigns right now, there is an enormous probability that Barbara Lee gets appointed. Thus, it makes it harder for Schiff. One Pelosi family confidant said, adding that the relationship between Pelosi, her daughter, and the senator is being kept under wraps and very, very closely held. With that said, one more video from Cenk Uygur.
The holdup is that Gavin Newsom earlier promised, when he thought he didn't have to do it, that he would appoint a black woman. Well, who's the most logical black woman? Barbara Lee. Well, the problem is she's a progressive, and they would rather have all judicial appointments blocked than put a progressive into that seat. So Newsom right now is building a list of random African-American females in California in order to not give it to Barbara Lee.
I believe we have a hashtag for this, Cenk Uygur. It's called #Cenk was right.
Well, I appreciate it, Anna. As I say every time when we get these right, guys, politics is not that hard to figure out. The establishment never wants a progressive. They'll do anything to avoid it. On other occasions, I also mentioned it's because the establishment favors Adam Schiff. And we talked about it in the context of that race, Adam Schiff versus Katie Porter, and Adam Schiff versus Barbara Lee, specifically in regards to appointing Barbara Lee, the logical choice here. And by the way, I don't know who I would vote for between Barbara Lee and Katie Porter, but I do know Gavin Newsom definitely said he was gonna appoint a black woman. Barbara Lee is definitely the most qualified. There's no question about it. And I know that Gavin Newsom, every Democratic leader in California, and Nancy Pelosi all want Adam Schiff. Why do they all want Adam Schiff? Because he's the most corrupt. He has taken the most corporate donations, will do whatever corporations tell him to do, and Gavin Newsom and Nancy Pelosi agree with that 100%. And they don't want this guy to lose. And they're like, damn it, we've got this black woman here, we don't want to be the senator, but we can't say that publicly because we love playing identity politics.
Right.
And ironically, Pelosi pulls the female card on this very issue.
That's what they do. Guys, the Democratic Party weaponizes identity all the time for their political gain. That is it. That is it. You think Nancy Pelosi cares about women? Come on.
Not at all. Come on, guys. Come on. Look, that's some classic mainstream media stuff where they, a champion of women. No, you got to show it in the bills. I don't care what your theater is. I don't care how you rip up papers or what kind of cloth you wear and all this nonsense.
The theater, the posturing.
Yeah, and so the minute that. By the way, we've now got the question. There's one answer I didn't know, which was, well, who's the actual senator from California? I've asked that on the show about half a dozen times now, because that one, I'm like, how the hell am I supposed to know? That one's not easy to predict. I don't know if it's the chief of staff. I don't know if it's the communications director. It turns out it's none of them. It's Nancy Pelosi.
I know, guys, it's so sick. It's so sick. Like, I want you to really absorb what this means, okay? Dianne Feinstein is not in a good condition, both physically and mentally, okay? The fact that she didn't even know, remember that she had been out for 2.5 months, they are exploiting her, they are using her. What Nancy Pelosi is doing is absolutely disgusting. It is disgusting. First of all, it's undemocratic, it's just gross. And so let's just go to some new reporting from the New York Times that actually shed some additional light on how poor Dianne Feinstein's health is right now. It's even worse than we knew. So they report, this came out today. The shingles spread to her face and neck, causing vision and balance impairments and facial paralysis known as Ramsay-Hunt syndrome. The virus also brought on a previously unreported case of encephalitis, a rare but potentially debilitating complication of shingles, according to 2 people familiar with the senator's diagnosis who spoke on the condition of anonymity to describe it. I'm not done, there's more. Okay, let's go to the next graphic. Characterized by swelling of the brain.
Come on.
Post-shingles encephalitis can leave patients with lasting memory or language problems, sleep disorders, bouts of confusion, mood disorders, which honestly explains a lot, headaches and difficulties walking. Older patients tend to have the most trouble recovering. And even before this latest illness, as we all know, Feinstein had already suffered substantial memory issues that had raised questions about her mental capacity. Guys, what Nancy Pelosi is doing right now is disgusting and sick.
So, of course, no one in mainstream media will tell you that because that's obviously true.
But they're cowards and they like to provide cover for Pelosi.
Right, that would make the powerful uncomfortable.
Good, be uncomfortable.
And oh my God, a journalist, you can't make the powerful uncomfortable. What if they don't give you access? Why don't you go kiss their ass again? Okay, so listen, I am 100% against Republicans, but our job is to be honest, unlike apparently anyone else in media. And so in this case, I'm not having a conversation about Dianne Feinstein's mental health. It's over. She comes back from being out for all those months and she says, what, I wasn't out. It's over. I don't know or care if it's dementia or Alzheimer's or any of the above. She clearly has literally no idea what's going on. So this is beyond sick. It is incredibly deceptive. I don't find it to be like savvy politics that Nancy Pelosi installed her daughter as the illegitimate senator from California. No, I didn't vote for Nancy Pelosi's daughter. And guys, I'm also not having this conversation. Oh, the person next to Dianne Feinstein is always Nancy Pelosi's daughter, and Nancy Pelosi's daughter is the one who is telling you what Feinstein thinks.
No, it's even sicker than that.
No, she's the senator. Pelosi stole the seat.
No, guys, but there's also another element to the story in that New York Times piece that's genuinely concerning to me, because they report that 2 different family members tried to visit the senator, and they were told that she didn't want to see anybody.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? No. If you're a family member of Dianne Feinstein, please go help your family member.
Yes.
And do not listen to sick politicians telling you can't visit your family member because they'd like to take further advantage of her. Because Nancy Pelosi made a promise to Adam Schiff that, don't worry, Adam, okay? All of us corrupt Democrats will stick together and we'll defeat that black woman, Barbara Lee, and the other woman, Katie Porter. Oh, by the way, I'm for women's rights. Get out of here, man. Deeply, deeply corrupt.
All right, let's move on to more chaos in Congress, starting with this.
Santos? Resign! Resign! Get him out! Save yourself! Have some dignity! Have some dignity! There you go, come on! You gotta go! Alexander, you gotta go! How's that dress? The party! Republicans, kick him out!
Democratic Representatives Jamal Bowman and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez were heckling freshman Republican George Santos and demanding that he resign. Now, Santos threw a jab about AOC's Met Gala dress and then ran away. But nonetheless, Santos was faced by that swarm of reporters, specifically because House Republicans had just succeeded in blocking an attempt to expel him from Congress. For obvious reasons, for anyone who's been paying attention, but in case you haven't, I'll tell you why. So the freshman congressman has been charged with 13 counts of financial crimes, which include embezzling money from his campaign, falsely receiving unemployment funds, and also lying to Congress about his finances. Now, California Democratic Representative Robert Garcia introduced a resolution back in February to expel Santos. He sought to force a vote on that resolution using a process that left 3 options for the Republican Party, and that includes having a vote on the resolution, a move to table, or a referral to committee. Kevin McCarthy, the Republican House Speaker, and the House GOP chose the 3rd option to essentially refer this to committee. And Representative Dan Goldman, a New York Democrat, says this, quote, "It is simply an effort for the Republicans to avoid having to take an up or down vote on whether or not George Santos belongs here." The House voted along party lines, 221 to 204, to refer the matter to the House Ethics Committee, with Santos himself joining his GOP colleagues in voting to do so. I should also note that 7 Democrats voted present, including several who happened to be on the House Ethics panel, hoping to dispel any concerns of conflicts of interest. I just love how Democrats are like, we must play by the rules, and we don't want to give the impression that there's a conflict of interest. It's like, do you guys not understand who your opponents are? What's going on here?
Well, we know what's going on with Democrats. Pathetic weakness, other than Jamal Bowman, who I'm really enjoying these days. I'm gonna come back to Jamal in a second. But on the issue of the Ethics Committee, I understand the trick here. Number one, they referred it to the Ethics Committee. It was already in the Ethics Committee.
I know.
So they double referred it? Is that the big action that they took? So that's hilarious, that's a joke, that's a literal joke, okay? Yep. And then the second thing that I'm not sure a lot of people know is that once the Department of Justice indicts someone, the Ethics Committee historically has to stop working on their investigation. So they referred it to a committee that cannot continue the investigation and that was already looking into it. So that is definitively saying, no, we are not going to expel.
What I want to understand is why the Republican Party is against law and order. Why does the Republican Party want to protect individuals who embezzle money? Why? Why do they love criminals so much?
By the way, why can't a Democratic congressperson do that speech?
I know.
I mean, it's so easy, guys. Like, look at the 3 facts we just gave you. So easy, saying, hey, look, the Ethics Committee can't investigate because the Department of Justice is already investigating. And why do you guys want to protect a criminal? I mean, now you protected Trump, now you're protecting him. You protect all the people that Donald Trump gave pardons to, who are almost all white collar criminals. Then you wanted to defund the IRS because they look into tax cheats, who happen to coincidentally be your donors, okay? So So why do you hate law and order so much? Why do you want to defund the police? Why do you want to defund the FBI, defund the IRS, defund everyone who would be a check on incredibly wealthy people and powerful people? Now, these are super easy points to make, but Democrats can't quite figure it out, etc. So now back to Jamal Bowman, because there are a couple of Democrats who apparently are willing to fight. So go get him, Jamal. He used to be a principal, and then he won this seat after that. He started his own school, which was received all these awards in New York. He's an amazing guy to begin with. I like now that the principal is yelling in the hallways at these children, okay? And he's like, hey, George, you're in detention, go home, okay? But you should be expelled. And the principal is absolutely right. And why is Jamal Bowman like basically getting into these shouting matches all throughout the hallways of Congress, right outside of Congress? Because there's no actual debates in Congress.
1000%. I mean, look, the theater that we all see every time they have a hearing, it's nonsense, right? They don't actually intend to do anything, but I think if you engage in the kind of theater that we're seeing from Jamal Bowman, I mean, there's a gaggle of reporters there. Reporters love theater, they love that kind of drama. And it kind of forces them to cover the story and shed light on Republicans providing cover for a potential, and I only say potential because he hasn't been convicted yet, but a potential criminal.
Yeah. So when you do a polite speech in Congress about, I do declare George Santos has prevaricated, nobody covers it. You go outside where there's all the reporters and you go, hey, why don't you get the hell out of Congress already, you crook? Everybody covers it. So Jamal's not only being effective and using basically the one avenue that's left to fight back against Republicans, but he's also being smart and strategic about how to do it, right? So look, what are they doing inside Congress? Fake hearings about fake informants. They're not doing any of the people's business. The only other thing they're doing is a fake fight over the debt ceiling so they could cut from the average American. So that's why Bowman's having to do it outside of Congress, and I say more power to him.
Now, Santos was asked, well, if the ethics committee finds that you engaged in wrongdoing, that you should resign, would you be willing to do it? Apparently he said, of course, but like, can you really believe anything that George Santos says? And he had already committed, and he's on the record saying that he plans to run for re-election. Let's see if the people in his district would be willing to elect him again. I mean,
no, there's no chance. If you don't know why the Republicans aren't kicking him out, yes, they don't mind criminals at all, that's true, but also because they only have a 4-seat majority in the House, and that's a swing district. They're afraid of losing that district because of all the damage that Santos has done. Then they'd be down to 3 votes, and that would be inside this term, so they're very worried about that. Plus, McCarthy made him a promise that if he backed him during the speaker votes, that he would leave him alone, and so that's the backdoor deal that McCarthy made that everybody knows about.
Now, in our members only bonus episode today, a discussion that I want to have, only because I want to rile Cenk up, is how reporters failed to catch all of this gross history that Santos has, like not a single report about it prior to the election, which allowed for him to get elected as a United States member of the House. But when it came to you running for Congress, they were willing to make things up, all right? I mean, it is interesting how they treated Santos versus Cenk. We should talk about that in our members only bonus episode. You can become a member if you're not one by going to tyt.com/join. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can join by clicking the join button below.
Yep, and I will have strong opinions on that.
Yeah. All right, for now though, why don't we take a quick break, and when we come back, Joe Scarborough says some quiet things out loud, including, the kind of relationship he has with Joe Biden. That and more coming up.
I have not done my job since I've gotten here. I can chew and walk gum at the same time.
You look like a fool. Yes. Yes.
TYT. First of all, I'm going to be on Dan Abrams' show discussing Jamal Bowman yelling at different people, including Marjorie Taylor Greene. We got that story coming out for you later too. But check out Newsmax tonight at 9 o'clock Eastern, and I'll be on Abrams' show. All right, the Mountain wins again. Writes in, or the Mountains win again. Okay, I don't mean to be a brown nose, but I just realized that this network is the only thing I pay for that has stayed the same price since I started. Amazing. Thanks, TYT. It's amazing that you said that because we're about to brag about that. I'm not kidding, right?
Really?
Like, yeah, we didn't use the excuse of inflation to raise prices at all.
Yeah.
So the lowest level for membership is still $4.99. And by the way, some of you wrote in with a couple of issues about getting the archives, and it told you had to be at a producer level and pay more. No. The producers are heroes. Anyone that's paying at a higher price, they're helping others because at $4.99, it's barely sustainable, right? We tried it at $2 because we wanted to help people, but it turns out that's not sustainable. So the guys that have upgraded through the join button or anywhere else, we love you for it. It makes a giant difference. But no, you can get all of the archives at $5. Apparently it's a glitch for some of the users, but that's not what we're doing. We're keeping the price at the same place. And we love every one of you that's joined at that. And I appreciate you noticing that and calling that out. Trista says, Jamal Bowman yelling at corrupt members of Congress truly makes my heart sing. Chacho Supreme, I don't know why I struggled with that. Anyway, thank you for framing the Feinstein situation as elder abuse. In positive news, this conclusively confirms how much the neoliberals fear progressives. They would abuse a person they supposedly respect to hold power.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but that's such a great, that last point is so good. So if you told me, hey, wheel in Bernie Sanders and pretend that he has a certain opinion and abuse him all day long, and when he should be resting at home, I would say no, under no circumstances would I do that. Whereas Pelosi thinks, perfect. Oh, my friend is in dire straits. Let's take advantage of her. Put my daughter in there to pretend she's the California senator. It's disgusting. Trump's Lady Lum says, if the Democrats could get away with using a hologram to represent Feinstein, they would in a heartbeat. That's easy. What drives me crazy is that mainstream media would go, yeah, that's Dianne Feinstein. It's their gaslighting that unnerves me, let's put it that way. Dragon with a girl tattoo says, so basically we have a Pelosi in Congress and the Senate. Yes. Lou B says, call the odds, Cenk. That Newsom would break a quote press promise or disappoint the entire cabal of DC Dems. No, Lou, I don't have enough information on that, believe it or not, because that promise was rock solid. And if Gavin Newsom breaks it when he runs for president, which he's definitely going to do in the first primary, either this year or in 2028, the first primary is South Carolina, all black vote, a lot of black voters, and people will remember that. His opponents will bring that up. That's why he's like, ooh, it's my political career either way, what should I do? And so that's why it's not clear.
Can I just tell you, okay, so I'll tell you guys when we come back from the break. You're gonna love this, so don't miss it.
Yes.
Sorry, Cenk.
No, that's okay. We're out of time, we'll be right back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys, but also Maku Pawa, Pete Holmes, CG, Daniel De La O, and Gabby Mathis and Jonathan Sismic use the join button to upgrade to TYT Premium, which you can all do through the same button as well. And Gabby and Jonathan and all the new members, we love you. Thank you for doing that. We appreciate it. We do this show together. And thank you for keeping our voice strong. Anna, you wanted to say one thing.
Yes, I do want to say something. So, former Vice President Mike Pence just went on Fox News, and while speaking to Larry Kudlow, he decided to take some jabs at Donald Trump, which is shocking because even after the Capitol riots, Pence was super soft on Trump, didn't want to attack him too viciously. Well, he did take some jabs at Trump for not targeting Medicare and Social Security. Oh God, I'm so excited to watch you run and fail for president of the United States. Do you not get it? He doesn't get that that's the third rail.
No, I know, but so he's in a pickle because even Republican voters love Social Security and Medicare and will take your head off, proverbially, rhetorically, but they're Republican voters, good God. They wanted to hang Mike Pence earlier, so they do not want you to cut those things. But I think the reason Pence is saying that is he's basically going on TV and saying, donors, I'll do anything for you, please send money. And that's why he's saying what he's saying.
Yeah, so Kudlow asks him, you noted that Trump was a big spender. You disagree with him on entitlements. You say we've got to tackle Medicare. We're gonna have to tackle Social Security. What were you getting at? No, I think, Kudlow, put the drink down. I think it's pretty clear. He wants to cut Social Security and Medicare. What are you talking about? Like,
where's the hard part?
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Anyway, so Pence is completely oblivious to the fact that he wants to target spending on programs that are wildly popular even among the Republican base.
Like over 3/4 of Republicans love those programs. That's the one thing, by the way, that's part of why we say don't underestimate Trump. Because he has that populist streak, whether he means it or not, he goes out there and he says, why would I protect Social Security and Medicare? And it's not just Democratic voters or independents, the Republican voters love that. All the other Republican knuckleheads are like, hey, donors, I'll cut it for you. And then they lose popularity.
And let me just read you Pence's exact statement, okay? Get a load of this. Look, our administration could have done a better job controlling domestic spending. I fully supported what we did in rebuilding our military after years of budget cutbacks. Come on.
That's saying defense contractors, please send money.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. I supported emergency relief during COVID for families and for businesses that propped up our economy. But between there, Larry, we could have done better. And most important of all, we could have begun a national debate for dealing with the real driver of our national debt, which is 70% of our federal budget, as you know, which is entitlements. And what he's referring to is Social Security and Medicare. Of course, no mention of the $2 trillion in tax cuts to the wealthy and to corporations, which was, of course, Trump's tax cuts for the rich. That's totally fine. Right, that wasn't in any way irresponsible because we gotta give the wealthy, we gotta give the corporations more cookies, even though their effective tax rate with all those loopholes, deductions and loopholes was so low already. And now it's even lower, which is why you have major corporations, some of the wealthiest corporations in this country paying nothing in federal taxes some years. Companies like Amazon, for instance.
Look, in Justice is Coming, my book that's coming out, I show you that over 80% of Americans think that we should tax big business more, that they have too much power. And about 59% of Americans say they just have too much money. I don't even know what that means. I don't even agree with that, right? But American people do not love big business, okay? So why do politicians constantly tell you how much they love big business? Remember what one of the things that Pence said that Anna just read you right in the middle is like, remember during COVID relief, I sent all the money to big business. And remember, I love the $2 trillion tax cuts that went all to big business, okay? And I want to cut the entitlements that goes to the average American. I want to cut from the average American. Why would somebody be so stupid as to say that? Because they're not stupid. They're doing an ad for themselves on television to people watching CNBC, wealthy donors. And he's going on there and say, send me money. I will do anything for you.
Yeah, and by the way, these are programs that we have paid into. Social Security, Medicare, take a look at your check stub and you will see exactly how much money you have contributed during that pay period to Social Security and Medicare.
One more quick thing. The Republicans derisively call it entitlements as if you're a bum asking for an entitlement.
They're so disgusting.
But do you know why they were called entitlements in the first place? Because since they took it out of your paycheck, you are entitled to get it back.
Damn right.
But the Republicans use that to smear the average American to help the rich.
All right, let's move on. We're not winning with left-leaning media either, and here's a good example of it. During a discussion over President Joe Biden, Morning Joe hosts Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski talked about like, no, he's not old. He's not too old. What are you guys talking about? Joe Biden is doing real well, he's real strong. Mika Brzezinski goes on and on about his crazy busy schedule and how he's able to handle it like a real man. I mean, us normal people wouldn't be able to handle that incredibly difficult and busy schedule. But what I particularly found interesting was Joe Scarborough's conversation on the aptly named podcast Hacks on Tap, where he discusses the president hitting him up late at night for late night debates. Let's watch.
I know that Joe Biden is still cogent because I've said a few things about him on my show, and I've read a couple of op-eds, and he'll wake me up when I'm asleep at 8:30 at night, because Meek and I, of course, wake up at 4:30 in the morning, and I'll just go, "Hello, yes, sir."
Yeah.
And about an hour later, he will aggressively and very effectively give me point by point by point about how my op-ed was flawed.
So in an effort to defend Joe Biden and make the case that he is not too old to run for re-election, Joe Scarborough, I don't know if it was accidentally, I don't know if he just doesn't think it's that big of a deal, admits to the American people that the President of the United States calls him at 8:30 at night to talk to him, to discuss policy with him, which, if I recall correctly, Libs had a huge problem with that, no? When it came to, Fox News hosts doing the same with Donald Trump. And if you don't remember, I can remind you of that. Let's watch.
Guess who was on the campaign trail with Trump just a few hours ago? Sean Hannity and Jeanine Pirro of Fox News.
Trump doesn't just rely on Sean Hannity's show for input, but every single night after it goes off the air, the two talk by phone right before bed.
If this had happened under a different administration and it was a different network, what would Republicans be doing? We would be having a fit. It's about the bias in the media and how this is so inappropriate and everyone's in bed with everybody else and how can we expect any kind of fair coverage? But now we have an entire major news network that has become a state propaganda for this administration. It's completely inappropriate.
How do they consider themselves a news network when they are actively
I feel bad
involved
for the
and
journalists,
engaged
the real reporters.
What they will tell you is that their evening people are opinion.
Right.
Their afternoon people are more Fox News. Most people know, but that's the distinction.
They think that Sean Hannity and all of the people at night are actually telling them the truth and have to abide by the rules of journalism, and they absolutely do not. They're opinion hosts, but the people who are watching that channel have no idea. There should be a bug if they want to do it up there that says these are opinions.
Don't you like the idea of them kind of chopping it up at night, like a couple of high school sophomores, and did my hair look good? How'd you like my closing comments tonight? And how do you like what I said about immigrants today? Destiny brought these guys together. Destiny brought them together. It was inevitable that they would be in each other's orbits to the extent that they are now.
Well, because the line, such as ever existed, Eric, between the conservative political structure and the corporate Fox News structure has completely dissolved.
I haven't seen any Republicans make a big deal about Joe Scarborough taking calls from President Biden at 8:30 at night. But I also haven't seen anyone on MSNBC or CNN make a big deal about it either.
Yeah, so look, I have an opinion that might surprise you on this in a second. But first, the obvious stuff. So all that crying they did, oh my God, can you believe it? Hannity signed it, Trump. Now Scarborough's, oh yeah, I'm talking policy in the middle of the night with Biden all the time. Not a peep. Have you guys heard a single criticism from anyone in media? Like, we're old enough to remember those clips that were from like 2 seconds ago, okay? You all saw them with your own eyes. And you will see going forward, no one will say another word about Joe Scarborough and Biden talking to each other behind the scenes, okay? So I want to point out that hypocrisy, and I'll add one thing to that hypocrisy. Remember when everybody also lost it about Chris Cuomo talking to his brother? They're like, oh, this is outrageous, you can't do that. I can't believe that they were talking behind the scenes. Now Scarborough does it with Biden. They're like, oh, bravo, no problem at all. Because as long as you're on the right team, everything's good. And by the way, they didn't mind talking to Chris Cuomo, talking to Andrew Cuomo when Andrew Cuomo was popular. But when Andrew Cuomo was caught, then all of a sudden it became a problem, right? And so, because before Andrew Cuomo was part of the establishment. And if you're part of the establishment, regular rules don't apply to you. Okay.
Listen, if Joe Scarborough made that statement on MSNBC, where they're constantly providing cover for Biden and his flaws and all of that, then I'd have no problem with it. But I would venture to say that their audience is under the impression that they are doing fair analysis and fair reporting.
I know, that's the problem.
And that's the problem for me.
Yeah, so that's gonna get to my potential surprise. If you watch Young Turks enough, you know you wouldn't be surprised. But I actually don't think there's anything wrong with Joe Scarborough and Joe Biden talking off air. I don't think there's anything wrong with Hannity and Trump. And come on, you tell me Chris Cuomo wasn't going to talk to his brother? Who are we kidding, right? So I'm not here to defend Cuomo or Hannity or Scarborough. 2 out of 3 of those guys I don't like at all, okay? But I don't think it's that big a deal as long as you are honest about it, okay? So like, let's say that Marianne Williamson wins and she's the president. She calls me up, hey Jake, what do you think about this? What am I gonna hang up on her? No, I'm gonna talk to her and I'm gonna give her my real opinion. But I'm not gonna hide it and I'm not gonna pretend that I don't have an opinion or a perspective. We're very clear about our perspective. So what drives me crazy about the CNNs of the world is they pretend to be outraged by others. Meanwhile, they slipped questions to Hillary Clinton, the questions they were gonna ask in a debate on CNN to Hillary Clinton in a debate against Bernie Sanders, right? And then they're like, can you believe how biased Fox News is being? But what they never admit to is their own corporate agenda.
And you meant News Nation, by the way, not, I think you said Newsmax.
Oh,
when you
well, when I promoted the Dan Abrams show earlier. Oh, I'm gonna be on tonight. We're gonna talk about Jamal Bowman yelling at Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm so sorry to News Nation. Yes, this will be at News Nation when and I'll be talking to Dan Abrams. And guys, I'm on Chris Cuomo's show all the time. It's not about that. I have a very well documented track record of being 100% against Andrew Cuomo, and not because of the latest scandals that just added on top of it, but Andrew Cuomo has been one of the most corrupt, conservative, corporatist Democrats of my lifetime. So I got no love for any of those guys in that regard, okay? But you have to be honest in your reporting. So I don't mind if they talk behind the scenes as long as they're clear about their perspective. But mainstream media hides their perspective, which is the status quo and corporate rule are awesome, and we're gonna pretend that's the objective position.
When we come back for the second hour of the show, we'll tell you about how Disney has found a way to retaliate against Ron DeSantis, and Donald Trump is definitely clowning DeSantis over it. Don't miss it, we've got that and more.
Florida's ground zero for God's waiting room.
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like, tyt.com/join, and enjoy this.
You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey, hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitzing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny Pie. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Cenk. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Such a big fan.
Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, AKA Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
And this is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. I'll refer to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT? Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Dr. Rashad Richard. We got a lot happening today. But what do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable.
Rashad, great to be here. Congratulations on the new show. And I gotta let everybody know that Rashad and I go way back.
Here's the pattern that we see in all of these Karen stories. They think they own stuff they do not own. Now, where does that come from? I don't know, maybe slavery. Maybe they think they should still own black people.
This is what happens when Karens weaponize the police.
When you're used to privilege, equality seems like oppression.
It hits you in a certain way when someone is holding you against your will, treating you like you're a criminal and you're an innocent person. This is something that Black people face no matter where they are.
A stronger Black economy lends itself to a stronger, greater economy. Don't think it's exclusive of you, it's inclusive of you.
What's your beef with critical race theory?
It adds more fuel to the fire of the racist tendencies that we already have.
We have a generation of problem solvers that can remedy the problem if they are properly taught what the problem is.
You know who created redlining in this country? It was a white liberal.
I don't give a damn who created it. If it's a racist policy, Shelley, here's what I don't know. I don't know. See, there you go filibustering, brother. You're scared of this truth, but you're gonna get it, though.
We've been around for about 20 years, and we have about 20 billion views. Am I proud of that? Hell yeah, I am. We put out 20 billion messages in a bottle. Have we helped to move now 2 generations, millennials and Gen Z, to become progressive? Yes, those numbers are real. We moved generations. Were we the only ones? Of course not. But we have been the largest online news show for now decades.
Gentlemen, this is Democracy Manifest.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, Nick, William Swanson, and Derek Bain with you guys, and I believe Rick Bungle. So all of you guys appreciate it. They all hit the join button below the video on YouTube, and you could do likewise wherever you're watching at tyt.com/join and come do this show with us. All right, Anna.
All right. As the feud between Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and Disney continues, Disney has decided to finally pull a nearly $1 billion project out of the state of Florida. And they're doing so in order to send a very clear message that Ron DeSantis's political stunts and retaliation against Disney is not something that they're in favor of and not something that they will stand for. Now, no one is happier about this than Donald Trump, and he engaged in some proper dunking, which we'll get to in just a moment, so buckle up for that. But first, let's tell you a little bit about the nearly $1 billion project that Disney was planning on accomplishing in Florida. So apparently the $864 million office complex known as the Lake Nona Town Center was supposed to involve the relocation of more than 1,000 employees from Southern California. The complex would have brought more than 2,000 jobs to the region, with $120,000 as the average salary, according to an estimate from the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. So the complex was first announced back in 2021 and was set to open in 2026. But it appears that is not going to happen. So let's get into, well, as you can see, Florida was going to get something out of that deal. It was going to increase jobs, but Disney had a lot to gain as well. Of course, Florida is a little more pleasant for business interests who are looking for tax cuts and less regulation. Most of the affected employees complained bitterly about having to move from Southern California to Florida. Some quit, but Disney largely held firm, partly because of a Florida tax credit that would have allowed the company to recoup as much as $570 million over 20 years for building and occupying the complex. When he announced the project back in 2021, Josh D'Amaro, Disney's theme park and consumer products chairman, cited Florida's business-friendly climate as justification. And don't be mistaken, Disney still has some pretty massive plans for investment in the state of Florida. So the same person, D'Amaro, noted that $17 billion was still earmarked for construction at Disney World over the next decade, growth that would create an estimated 13,000 jobs. He said, quote, "I hope we're able to." And so The withdrawal from Lake Nona Town Center is likely a warning shot to DeSantis, but nonetheless, Donald Trump loved it and used it as an opportunity to dunk on DeSantis. Before we get to that, Cenk, what do you think so far?
Well, I have mixed feelings. So I like that Bob Iger was strong because I'm so tired of the theater. Everything is theater. And in this case, he wasn't bluffing, it wasn't theater. He's like, okay, you're gonna threaten me? Okay. Why don't I take 1 billion and 2,000 jobs off your hands and see how you like them apples, okay? So I appreciate that strength. And, but at the same time, I hate that corporations bully states on a regular basis. And this is, so this happens to be very, it's got a huge spotlight on it. And it's because DeSantis originally did it for theater. He doesn't actually hate Disney. He loves taking their corporate donations, their campaign contributions, all of those things. The Republican Party loves their campaign contributions, and that's why when DeSantis did this theater, a lot of the Republicans turned on him. The Republican politicians did. And they're like, how dare you? That's a beloved corporation we all serve. And so when Disney says, give me $570 million in tax cuts, otherwise I don't come. I hate that move. I hate that almost all the governors give into it.
Yep.
And there's also a little bit of chicanery here because they also had construction problems on that project and a labor revolt because their employees were like, you're gonna move, remember they're not creating new jobs. They're just taking 2,000 jobs from California and they were gonna move them to Florida. But those people actually lived in California and they're like, we don't want to move to Florida, and a whole bunch of them quit already, right? So the project was on the edge anyway. So it's a good opportunity for Iger to come and go, oh yeah, I'll show you who's boss on a project he might have canceled anyway.
Yeah, that's fair to say. That's absolutely fair to say. But with that said, I mean, it's everything in politics is about optics, and so the way that Disney can spin this, and honestly, that's what it appears is happening as we speak, is, Ron DeSantis catching feelings over our statement against the Don't Say Gay bill is really hurting the state of Florida, right? And so that's what they're doing here. It's a bit of a game. And what's helping them in this effort, in the optics, is Donald Trump. So I wanna get to him because he loved this. And so the Trump War Room on Twitter, which is Trump's 2024 campaign Twitter account basically, wrote this: Ron DeSanctimonious gets caught in the mousetrap. The culture of losing continues. DeSantis' weakness leads to job losses and loss of $1 billion. Okay, so let me just note, Ron DeSantis taking jabs at Trump by saying that Republicans need to get past the culture of losing definitely got under Trump's skin. Even though he didn't name Trump, even though he didn't mention Trump's name, it didn't matter. Trump heard it, he hated it, and you can tell by that tweet. The Trump campaign also issued a statement called "President Trump is always right," which simply reposted a Truth Social post by Trump from last month. And I'm not gonna read all of that, but he's basically going after Ron DeSantis and making fun of him in this battle with Disney.
Yeah, so look, first of all, we were right about the culture of losing being a good tagline for DeSantis, and you could tell by Trump's reaction. But is DeSantis strong enough to fight back against Trump? Because either he's gonna sit here and eat his meatball and like it, okay?
Oh my God.
Or he could go back at Trump and go, oh, so you want groomers in our school? I hate this, don't get me wrong.
No, don't, okay. I don't like that strategy.
No, I hate the strategy, but it would work with right wingers, okay? And he could say, oh my God, I can't believe Donald Trump wants our children to be exposed to gay people, Okay, now for us decent human beings, we'd be more turned off by that, right? But the base loves it. That's why he did it in the first place. So are you gonna fight Trump or are you gonna surrender? And my guess is DeSantis is a fairly regular politician. He's not gonna fight back.
No.
And he's chastened because this is the one thing that he lost all the Republican support on. His main strength is he has the establishment on his side. He's got establishment media, he's got right-wing media, he's got right-wing politicians on his side. And as soon as he touched the third rail, which is corporate donors, they're like, he got fried on it, and so he's gonna run for the hills. And so Score one for the mouse, easily defeats the meatball.
Now, final thing that I want to mention in the context of this story, because I was entertained by it and I think you would appreciate it as well. Donald Trump also, well, Donald Trump's war room decided to go after DeSantis for a very good reason, which was this. Trump War Room tweets a screenshot of yet another awkward Ron DeSantis face. This is the more recent one that we also talked about. And I love it. Yeah. I enjoy it and I will allow it.
Yeah, so look, it's a Hobson's choice. They're both horrible, right? Yep. But we do like it when they hit each other.
Absolutely.
And I like this new trick that Trump's doing, because if he tweets on Twitter, it could cost him a ton of money, because Truth Social depends on him only putting posts there, right? Otherwise, their valuation collapses and Trump loses a lot of money. So he's invented the Trump War Room that says things like DeSanctus and DeSanctimonious. It's obviously him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Truth Social depends on Trump and depends on Trump.
Oh, okay. Hey, Ron DeSanctimonious, that's a freebie from us, okay?
Feel free to take it.
That's right.
Yeah.
But he won't, because he's too scared.
All right, let's move on to some more shouting in Congress.
Expulsion. We got to save the party. The party's hanging by a thread.
We got to get rid of Biden.
The party's hanging by a thread. We got to save the party. Listen, no more QAnon.
Democratic lawmaker Jamal Bowman has been getting into some shouting matches recently. Now, he got into a shouting match specifically after Republicans blocked an effort to expel freshman Republican George Santos from the House. And Marjorie Greene got involved and they went back and forth. And so Santos was indicted by the Department of Justice just last week on 13 counts, including wire fraud, illegal money transactions, lying on financial disclosures, potentially stealing from public funds. And he has already pleaded not guilty to all counts and says that he's going to fight this. But based on the lying we've seen from Santos, I wouldn't trust him, and I think that the Justice Department very likely has a good case here. Now, Marjorie Greene, in her attempt to deflect from all of this, ended up getting into this shouting match with Bowman about guns and immigration. So let's take a look at that.
QAnon, no more MAGA,
no more CNN,
no more debt ceiling nonsense. Come on now, save the party, save America, save the children, do something about guns.
Right, so close the border.
Come on, invest in education.
Save the children.
The borders when Trump left.
Hey,
what are you talking about?
Where are the migrant children?
Kids?
You guys
We're accepting them. We love them. We love the migrant children. We lost them.
You can't find them.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Yeah, migrant children missing. You don't know
No, we don't know the news. I don't know. That's Fox News. That's Fox News. Listen, I need you to save the party.
So there she is telling Jamal Bowman that he's not very smart. Immediately after she says, in response to Bowman saying, do something about the guns, she says, close the border. As if the guns are coming in from Mexico, when in reality, it's the other way around, okay? Cartels are smuggling guns from the United States to Mexico. I mean, it's just insane. We've got evidence to show you on that if you want to see the receipts, but insane.
Yeah. So before we give you Marjorie Taylor Greene's reaction, Jamal Bowman's reaction to the reaction, et cetera, first of all, I want you to remember as you're seeing those reactions, they were both laughing, right? Marjorie Taylor Greene was smiling and laughing. Mm-hmm. Jamal Bowman laughed at the end, right? Even though she's the only one that said anything nasty in that interaction. They're having a debate, which I kind of liked, right? And then she said, you're not very smart. So Jamal Bowman didn't do anything threatening, he was almost jovial, right? And you see it with your own eyes, right? So remember that as we go to these. And then I want to say, I love Jamal Bowman getting into these debates outside of Congress or in the hallways. As I said earlier in the show, I'm calling him the principal now. He's walking the hallways, straightening out the kids, okay? And I love that he started on, and in fact, in that entire clip, he brought up issue after issue, policy issues, right? So, and mainly about he's fighting back on the issue of gun control. So that's terrific, and the main reason that he's having to do that is because there are no actual debates inside Congress.
Now, let's get to Marjorie Greene's press conference following that shouting match that we all witnessed, because she says some interesting things in that press conference, including sharing with all of us how hurt she was by some of what Jamal Bowman had to say, allegedly. Let's watch.
Bowman shouting at the top of his lungs, cursing, calling me a horrible, calling me a white supremacist, which I take great offense to. That is like calling a person of color the N-word, which should never happen. Calling me a white supremacist is equal to that, and that is wrong. Jamal Bowman was down there cursing at me, telling me to get the F out of there, and he was leading the mob right outside the vehicle I was sitting in. We have this all on video. And then on the Capitol steps yesterday, he was the one that approached me. Even CNN reported that. Yelling, shouting, raising his voice. He has aggressive, his physical mannerisms are aggressive. I think there's a lot of concern about Jamal Bowman. So, and I am concerned about it. I feel threatened by him.
I mean, there's so much to talk about from the statement that she made there, including how hurt she is for being called a white supremacist when she was speaking at an event thrown by Nick Fuentes of all people.
It was literally a white supremacist conference. She went there, she knew what it was, she coordinated with Nick Fuentes, she even edited his speech. Well, I
think it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck, yeah. I mean, come on.
So look, Anna and I have said on many occasions, we think that there's way too much identity politics in politics. But in this case, wait a minute, I don't know what she's talking about. That was not on the tape at all. So she claims she has some secret tape where he called her a white supremacist. On the tape that we've all seen, the one that we know exists, he only brought up policy issues.
Right.
So don't put that on Jamal Bowman at all, okay? But she says, oh, can you believe it? It's the same as being called the N-word. No, first of all, no, it's not.
No.
It's not that at all. And second of all, when you go to a white supremacist conference, that's when people call you a white supremacist.
She also accused him of cursing at her. I didn't hear a single
Again,
curse
this
word.
is all on the secret tape that she, what, you're shy about sharing it? Is that what's going on,
Yeah,
Marjorie
where is
Taylor
it?
Greene? Okay, so, and even if it's true, he's right. He's like technically and very literally correct. And guys, this is the same woman who shouted into AOC's mailbox when she had not won her congressional seat yet, and she was a rando. She went around shouting at Congress people for like publicity stunts, right? Now you're catching feelings about being shouted at by a fellow congressperson? Oh, please, your hypocrisy knows no bounds.
I gotta say, I mean, we're looking at the video right now. We're not hearing any sound, but we see their body language. She certainly does not seem scared. She doesn't seem like she's being intimidated by Jamal Bowman.
Yeah, and of course, now, look, Jamal Bowman's gonna talk about it here, but that's a very old trope of, oh, large black man, I was scared, so we had to do something about it. Okay, so let's go to Bowman's clip here.
Marjorie Taylor Greene in her press conference this morning said something incredibly dangerous and incredibly reckless about me, talking about my demeanor as being aggressive and saying that she feels intimidated by me. Unfortunately, this country has a history of characterizing black men who are outspoken, who stand their ground and who push back as being threatening or intimidating. So she's not even using a dog whistle. She's using a bullhorn to put a target on my back to the people that she refers to as MAGA people out there who might want to cause harm. This is the same reason why Mike Brown was killed. This is one of the reasons why Emmett Till was killed. And throughout history, black men have continued to be characterized as aggressive because, one, because of our skin color, but two, because we happen to be outspoken and passionate about certain issues.
And yeah, I mean, I love that you mentioned how they were both like smiling and laughing during that video that we watched earlier, because she did not look intimidated or scared at all.
Yeah, all of a sudden Marjorie Taylor Greene's intimidated, please. All right, and remember she also chased children down the streets, including the victims of Parkland massacre, yelling at them, oh, yeah, your friends were murdered, so what? And now all of a sudden you're worried about people yelling at you. Hilarious, okay? And I was paraphrasing. Now, in terms of the stereotypes, it's absolutely true that throughout history, in American history, unfortunately, they say, oh, that black man looked intimidating, we had to kill him. Okay, and so he gave a couple of examples, and you know all of them, Emmett Till, etc. And Emmett was a child, and they still did it to him, right? By the way, there's also that about large men sometimes. And look, Jamal's large in a different way than I am. He's a little bit more swole, but I have had people say his physical presence intimidates me, and he should not be allowed to speak. Okay. What? Okay, that's insane, right? Now you take a large and black man like Jamal Bowman, right? And then she uses that stereotype in her fake defense of like, oh, I'm the victim. I don't believe in yelling. Oh, it's just little Marjorie Taylor Greene here. Hey, any of the MAGA guys want to help me out with Jamal? Okay, yeah, I see you.
When we come back from the break, we'll talk about the one state that has already banned TikTok. And if you're using TikTok, or more importantly, if there's a platform allowing you to download it, there are some consequences. We've got details on that and more coming up.
This earth warming and carbon is actually healthy for us.
Dumbass, you trademark is stupidity.
You saw a couple things there. Make sure you're checking out Unbossed Tina Turner's show, youtube.com/UnbossedTYT on our network, and it's of course on at 4 o'clock Eastern. You can use the QR code there as well. And by the way, check out our podcasting network wherever you get your podcast. Okay, I'm gonna go to members. Jarv Jambongino writes in, man, I'm so sick of weak ass Democrats. Please already. We need someone who will actually fight instead of cowering to these bullies. Hey, Biden, the first and only thing you need to know about the bullies is when you stand up to them, they back off because their strength is a facade. So all that is 100% right, and you want someone who will fight for actual Democratic voters. Hold.
By the way, the other thing that's a facade, and that's the inconvenient truth in this whole scenario, is that Biden also wants the cuts. Like, you get what I'm saying?
100%, yeah. He's both weak and complicit. Lizzie Salerno writes in, can Cenk start making optimistic predictions so that we can get some good news for once?
He did make one optimistic prediction and it cost him $400. Remember?
Oh yeah. Look, the only prediction I've ever gotten wrong is the bet I made with Anna. Okay, so word to the wise, be careful of Casper. Anyway, seriously guys, I have a giant optimistic prediction. But you can't do optimistic predictions out of nowhere because that's not how it works. You need facts. Yeah.
Is it that justice is coming?
Bingo, okay? It's literally the title of my book. No, seriously guys, you'll see in chapter 6 of the book that we're actually the favorites, we're not the underdogs. I know that sounds impossible to believe, but once you read it, you'll be like, oh my God, why didn't I know that? You didn't know that because the media never told you. Yes, we have all the voters. So read the book, you'll see tyt.com/justice to pre-order.
So I have begun reading it. I've read a huge portion of it over the weekend, and so far I can definitely attest to the fact that it's 10/10. I recommend it.
Oh, thank you, appreciate it. Brett Williams writes in, the $4.99 price is, and now it's in all caps, the most affordable and best investment in my life. I'm so grateful for TYT Network and all that you guys do. Brett, thank you for saying that. That's wonderful. We appreciate it. And like I said, we're kind of proud that we kept the price really low so that everybody can come member, get all the content, and help support the show. Eclectic Miscellanea also says, new idea for a TYT promotion. Instead of getting that venti frappuccino at Starbucks, why not treat yourself to a full month of content from TYT, the biggest online news network that covers the workers' unions that are standing up to Starbucks.
Hell yeah.
Hey, of course, I love that idea. Thank you, we appreciate that too. So spread the word, guys. And meanwhile, let's go to our members on YouTube. Trisha Briggs says, #Cenk was right. Thanks to you, I'm so much more informed and politically active since TYT. The truth is powerful and we always have that on our side. Trisha, that's our secret weapon, the truth. And so you're gonna see soon, we're gonna use that and we're gonna win. Crystal Sheets writes in, Ron better start going woke or Florida's gonna go broke. Crystal, I like those rhymes. Grumpy Cat says, Ron's meatballs just got smaller.
Oh my God.
They want to make you drink Starbucks every day from now until forever.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. And look at all these new members. Sarah Murphy, The Clash 157, Kurt Hale, CL Proudfoot, Eugenia Geneva, Luna Mark Studios. They all hit the join button below to come and help us be a strong voice for progressives and for the whole country and fight back. Every member makes a difference and we really appreciate it, guys. Casper.
Well, the first state in these United States has decided to ban TikTok.
Montana's governor just signed the country's first law completely banning TikTok. It goes further than any other state's moves to ban that social media app. The ban is expected to face some legal challenges, potentially determining the fate of the app in the country.
That's right. The governor of Montana signed an all-out ban on TikTok that will go into effect on January 1st of 2024. Now, what does this mean exactly? How is this going to be implemented and enforced? Well, according to the ban would punish ByteDance, which is of course the parent company of TikTok, and any app store that makes TikTok available to people in the state of Montana. Now, specifically, ByteDance and the app stores would be fined $10,000 for every day that TikTok is available to use or download. Individuals who downloaded it onto their phones will not be punished. Now, here's what the governor of Montana had to say about this. The Chinese Communist Party using TikTok to spy on Americans, violate their privacy, and collect their personal, private, and sensitive information is well documented. By the way, it's also well documented. It's documented that every app does the exact same thing, but nonetheless, today Montana takes the most decisive action of any state to protect Montanans, people in Montana, their private data and sensitive personal information from being harvested by the Chinese Communist Party. Oh wow, we found a way to use Chinese Communist Party twice in the same statement. Now, it's unclear how this is going to be enforced. Like, there's a lot of questions surrounding this. For instance, what if someone from out of state has TikTok on their phone and they travel within the state of Montana? Like, how do you enforce this, right? If doing it on a state-by-state basis seems a little weird. Cybersecurity experts say that other than avoiding the fine, there's nothing incentivizing the companies involved to comply, and it will be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to adequately enforce the law. I've got more details on this, but so far I'm curious what you think, Cenk.
Yeah, so this governor once body slammed a reporter, literally. And then that's when he was running for Congress, and then the Republicans elected him easily. They're like, oh yeah, violence against reporters is A-okay, right? And he's complaining about the Chinese Communist Party because of their oppression of what? Freedom of the press? And guys, I want you to just note this propaganda. I want to note it a couple of times. Everyone used to say China. Now all the Republicans started saying China, Chinese Communist Party. Now the press is repeating Chinese Communist Party.
That's right, yeah.
Almost every time, instead of just calling the name of the country. I got no love for the Chinese government. They run concentration camps, right? But understand where the propaganda is coming from and why, right? All of a sudden we hate China. By the way, we owe China trillions of dollars. And so now all of a sudden we hate China and we're trying to start hostilities with them. What do we? And then the Republicans say, hey, let's not pay them back. let's squelch on the debt ceiling situation and not pay our debts. So there's a lot of propaganda happening here, and it's not just from the Chinese government, it's also from American politicians like this governor. Look, I asking questions about where the data is going from TikTok, is it going to the Chinese government, is a totally legitimate question. Banning TikTok is not at all legitimate. There's 1,000 things you could do before you get to a ban. You could make regulations. I know Republicans pretend they hate regulations, right?
Right.
But there's like 12 different regulations you can do before you go to the basically death penalty and saying I'm banning it, right? Because this isn't about actually protecting your data and privacy. Republicans don't care about that. Almost no one in Congress cares about that when American companies do it. No, this is about an attack against China and propaganda against China, etc. And so look, we did this when the Republicans were doing it at the national level. I'll do it here too. We have a petition on it. Get your hands off of TikTok. And so go to tyt.com/petitions/hands-off-TikTok. If you can, use the hashtag hands-off-TikTok, because there's a second part of this that is really important too. It's not just against the Chinese government. Much more importantly, TikTok has tons of young voters, and those young voters are very progressive, and they're trying to put that genie back in a bottle, and they don't want any kind of media that allows a progressive voice. And TikTok at this point is probably the largest platform that has progressives flourishing on it. That's why they're attacking it.
So I want to go to this video because the press has been analyzing this, and one of the biggest issues is, all right, if you're serious about this ban of TikTok, I mean, you need to be able to enforce it. Are you going to be able to do that? So NBC and CBS both brought on legal analysts to break down the ban. Let's take a look at that.
It leaves itself open to a number of different challenges, most notably the First Amendment and something called the Dormant Commerce Clause. Basically, an individual state can't unnecessarily or unduly burden interstate commerce. But what exactly that means is a little hazy, and it's moved a lot over the years. Even in the last decade or so, it's been redefined. And then perhaps most importantly is that traditionally the Commerce Clause dealt with things like widgets, tangible items that are sold in a particular state. It's a totally different thing with this modern use of the internet and apps like this, because where is it sold? Where is it used?
First Amendment is not absolute. We have carve out to it. That's why I teach a whole semester on the First Amendment. If it was absolute, it would be a one-day class. One of those carve outs is for national security, potentially immediate threats to national security. I'm not sure that the evidence is there that indicates that TikTok does present that kind of threat.
Now, I'm not a lawyer, but what both of those legal analysts said definitely makes sense. I just don't really see a real mechanism in place to enforce this. I think it's weird to have one state do it. I do agree with you that there are ulterior motives here.
Guys, I'm guaranteeing it to you right now. The ulterior motive, the Chinese propaganda is that propaganda against the Chinese government is the appetizer. The entree is shut down those progressive voices. They're getting killed by younger voters in elections now. Before, justice was on its way. Now justice is almost here. And so they lost Wisconsin because of young voters. They lost the Biden-Trump election because of young voters. Republicans are in a cold sweat panic, and they're saying, where are all the young voters who are agitating for progressive change? They're mainly on TikTok. Ban it, ban it. I mean, I'm really worried about national security and cybersecurity. Yeah, that's the ticket. Cybersecurity. No, they're used to controlling almost all of media. It's driving them crazy that they can't control young progressives on TikTok. And I love it. Hands off TikTok, don't let them touch it.
And finally, because I do want to give young people a voice here, last month after the state legislature had passed this ban, it hadn't been signed yet, but they had just passed it last month. One TikTok user decided to go ask students at the University of Montana how they feel about the pending ban. And here's what the youth had to say.
How do you feel about the recent TikTok ban?
That's interesting. Why?
China.
I guess I can see that.
I think it sets a really bad precedent. I think that it could lead to a lot more problems down the road.
Do you have a favorite TikTok trend? Take your time.
Okay.
How do you feel about the TikTok ban?
I heard about it recently. And I mean, it's distracting, first of all, and it prevents us from thinking the normal way, I think. So,
personally, I don't like it because most of my time is spent on TikToks.
How do you feel about the recent TikTok ban?
I feel like it's a way to control us.
What's your favorite TikTok dance?
Let us use TikTok, please.
For people that use it, I mean, from what I understand, it's just a way to like express yourselves and get a message out there, which to me kind of sounds like stifling free speech a little bit.
All right, so I like the last few comments there.
Yep, me too.
All right, that's it. That's what we've got for you. Why don't we take a break?
All right.
When we come back, we've got more news for you, including, man, Jesse Waters really cannot stop himself from being creepy on air. The latest example is what we will show you when we come back from the break. See you then.
Back on the social break. Let's go to Super Chat. Foresto Mintero writes in, my heavily religious Republican father-in-law just heard your discussion about Mike Pence and went on a rant about how important social programs are.
Absolutely. I love, is that grandfather, she said?
Father-in-law.
Father-in-law, still. I love him. Good for him.
Okay, you see that? And that was a heavily Republican father-in-law.
Yeah.
Because like all Americans, they want to protect Social Security and Medicare. All right, Marshall Travis says, I'm running for US Senate in Indiana and appreciate any support to stop Jim Banks and his Christ fascist agenda, whatever fascist agenda it is. But okay, Marshall Travis in Indiana. There you go, there's your plug. I appreciate any progressive running. Aaron McElwee says, I wanted Emma to be right, but my gut was telling me that Cenk would win the bet. Neolibs are gonna neolib. Unfortunately, that's true. So let's go to YouTube members. Zenny says, even cutting the bloated military budget by 1/3 would solve most of the country's problems. That's absolutely true. There'd be easy 1/3 to cut, but there's a 0% chance that Democrats would do that, let alone Republicans. But I appreciate Ro Khanna fighting for it anyway. Pontiac T says, how about reverse the Trump tax cuts? That would generate some revenue. 0% chance that Democrats would do that, let alone Republicans. Miss Anonymous 617 says about Biden's weakness, he wonders why his numbers are so low. R. Abbott with a more devastating point, maybe Feinstein can be Biden's VP. Okay, but good point. Christina Elisa Brown says, another good point, says Anna looks gorge.
Oh, thanks.
Cenk just been looking great. That's the main point I wanted to emphasize.
Okay.
Like period, and that's great. Guys need love too. Christina, thank you, really appreciate it. Vincent Maskey says, if Nancy Pelosi cared about women, we would have never been in the Roe versus Wade situation in the first place. That is absolutely right.
Such a good point.
They could have easily made Roe v. Wade the law of the land, but Nancy Pelosi didn't bother. Where we were talking about how the establishment targets progressives, Jaden wrote in, like they did with Nina Turner. That is absolutely right. By the way, check out Nina Turner's show on the Young Turks. It says 4 o'clock Eastern, live. Modern Relic says, I wish Cenk was wrong more often. Me too, me too, trust me. But unfortunately, these establishment figures are pretty easy to predict. Rick Bungle says, Cenk is always right. Thank you, I appreciate that. And Rick's a new member, and I appreciate that even more. C. Hill writes in, I wrote Fetterman in response to Pelosi saying they've never asked a man, and he was a man, and they asked to resign and said was unfit. That's true, Republicans have said that about Fetterman all the time. And she said, oh, they never do it to a man. No, you're just playing identity politics. They do it to guys just as much. William Zaragoza in that case. Zaragoza writes in, what's going on with Feinstein is elder abuse, but the donors are undoubtedly still getting the votes they want, so nothing changes. Christina Lisa Brown writes in again, we need more passion like Bowman, agreed on all fronts. And I am out of time, we'll be back. Back on TYT, Jen Canana with you guys. Also, Sky Yarden, who just became a member by hitting the join button below. Kev Z247 gifted 5 Young Turks membership and became an American hero. Well, actually, they were already an American hero. They've done that a bunch of times. And the last one is Ahmad Ghazi wrote in, I guess Mickey Mouse fights harder than the Democrats. Ouch. That's also true. All right, Anna.
Let's do it.
We all know women love watching The Bachelor, but hold your roses, ladies, because the show's turning into Golden Girls. There's a new edition of The Bachelor. They're calling it The Golden Bachelor, where all of the contestants are going to be over 65. I don't know if I'm going to watch this, I'm sorry. Only if The Bachelor was 65 and all the other women were young. That I would watch.
Jesse Waters really cannot help himself. He has to share with the audience almost on a regular basis at this point just how creepy he happens to be. But this one time, that example that we just showed you might actually hurt him with his own audience because the Fox News audience is certainly older. And believe it or not, it's almost 50-50 split between the genders. So we'll get to that in just a moment. But Cenk.
Yeah. So look, the older guys that watch Fox News are gonna love them. Like, oh yeah, over 65, and then we get the younger women. Okay, that's okay, fine. But there's a lot of women who watch. And when I wrote Justice is Coming, I wrote that Fox's average audience age was 68. Last I checked, it had moved up to 70. That means half the audience is above 70 years old. And if they're as female as Anna says, and I hadn't seen those numbers, they're not gonna like that talk of like, oh, who wants to watch old women date? Oh, boo, ha, ha. All right, keep saying it, Jesse. Keep saying it, see how it turns out for you.
So look, it depends on what you're relying on for the demographic info for Fox. But if you look at a survey, so we'll be fair, and instead of looking at Nielsen ratings and things like that, we'll go to a 2019 survey by Pew Research Center. And remember, this relies on self-reporting, and the point of that survey was to see what the main source of news was for the respondents. And 9%, and of those who said that Fox News happens to be their main source, only 9% were between the ages of 18 and 29. 22% were between 30 and 49 years old. 32% were between 50 and 64 years old. And 37% were 65 and older.
Yeah, I've seen many different stats on this. And they have it anywhere between 60 and 70 as the median age, which means these numbers are very conservative, if you will, for how old their audience is. And by the way, don't get it twisted. CNN, MSNBC's audience is also in the 68 range.
And by the way, this isn't necessarily completely accurate because they're just answering that Fox News is their main source. Each individual show also has different demographics, no?
Yeah, of course,
right.
That's right. And guys, this isn't like, haha, their audience is old, so what, right? Like we have plenty of older folks in our audience, they're some of the best progressives in the world. No, it's just that he's directly insulting his own audience.
Especially older women, and I thought to myself, well, are there a lot of women watching Fox News? I couldn't even believe this, but according to the same Pew Research survey, the breakdown in terms of like gender demos, 55% are men, 45% are women. So he does have older women watching that show as he's insulting older women. And also as he engages in all sorts of weird, creepy commentary like what you're about to see.
When I was trying to get Emma to date me, first thing I did, let the air out of her tires. She couldn't go anywhere. She needed a lift. I said, hey, you need a lift? She hopped right in the car.
Does she know this story?
No, she doesn't know this story. And I want to speak directly to the heiress right now. Dana, hold my hand.
Oh, boy.
Jeez.
Women need men. And men need women. We need each other. And if you understand nature, you understand there is not a war between the sexes. We need to make love, not war. And you need to stop chopping your hair off and calling us toxic. We are on a mission. Yes, we peacock, but we peacock for your attention. So fall in love and let's all live happily ever after. That's AOC. She's not ripe enough to run for president. First, she has to get married. And then you have to get pregnant. So
why?
No. This is how it goes. Single women are breaking for Democrats by 30 points. And this makes sense when you think about how Democrat policies are designed to keep women single. So we need these ladies to get married. And it's time to fall in love and just settle down. Guys, go put a ring on it. Women do not like making decisions. They want a man to make the decisions.
Jesse, don't even go there.
Okay.
I mean, I don't.
You guys ready for this? Fox is saying that they might move Jesse Waters to prime time.
Do it. Yeah, a great move.
But you know what though? Like the males in his audience definitely will like every part of that, okay? And so they're thinking of moving Sean Hannity to Tucker Carlson's spot and moving Jesse Waters and Greg Gutfeld to the other two spots. That's the latest from the insiders at Fox News. We'll see if those rumors turn out to be true. By the way, I don't know what happens to Laura Ingraham in that scenario, but it doesn't appear that they have a lot of respect for women at Fox News. So,
shocker.
I know,
yeah.
Very, very shocking. Yeah. My favorite part of all of those cheesy, horrible stories was not the part where he stalks an employee and
slashes lets the air out of her tires, so she's stranded. That
right?
No.
No. When he was, that's already disastrous. But when he was holding Dana Perino's hand, and he's like, "We need to make love," and she's like, takes her hand away, like Melania Trump from Donald Trump.
Oh, totally. All right, let's get to a firebrand in the bouncy house industry. Okay, so for all you parents out there, I'm sure this is gonna interest you. Kids love bouncy houses, man. They love to bounce. Okay, so let's get to the story. A man in Australia who ran a bouncy house business was so hell-bent on being number one, very competitive, he's got that competitive spirit, that he tried to take out all the competitors by setting them on fire, literally. Now, his name is James Balcombe, and he's the owner of Awesome Party Hire, and he carried out a series of fire bombings in 2016 and 2017 against his competitors in the hopes of destroying their businesses. Now, luckily he got caught, but I do want to give you the details about what led to this situation in which he's now gonna potentially spend a lot of time behind bars. So the judge in his case said Balcombe's offending was persistent. So he was so set on taking out his rivals that he told a guy named Craig Anderson, who he basically commissioned to set the fires, to return to businesses if the initial attempt to set the businesses on fire only caused minor damage. And so one of the businesses was in fact targeted 3 times. And here are some more details according to the Guardian's reporting on this. Many of the fires were unsuccessful, but A&A Jumping Castles was totally destroyed. The court heard that Anderson threw a Molotov cocktail through a smashed window at that business, causing a huge blaze that engulfed the factory and destroyed 110 jumping castles. Now, before I continue giving you more details, I just want to get this out of the way. Luckily, no one was harmed, no one was injured from all this nonsense that was taking place. But I do want to give you some more details. The fire caused $1.4 million in damages, and owners Michael and Aline Andrew lost everything, the court heard. The couple were forced to close their business and both now work casual jobs in childcare. I don't know what casual jobs in childcare means, but it
must be an Australian.
Yeah, exactly, 100%.
If you've ever done childcare, there's nothing casual about it.
No, not at all. Now, with that said, the strategy did work temporarily, okay? So Awesome Party Hire, which is this guy's company, was ranked #1 on Google after he commissioned these attacks. But Balcombe, he became concerned because police would probably find it suspicious that all these bouncy house companies are being set ablaze except for his. So he decides, you know what? Maybe I should set my own business on fire.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
So he directed Anderson to torch his own factory.
Yeah.
I mean, the brain on that guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So 3 days later, Anderson was arrested, and he ended up naming Balcombe as the mastermind behind the fire bombings and the attacks on rival businesses. And I'm really glad he did, because I believe in justice, but more importantly, I believe in fantastic mugshots like the one you're about to see. There he is. On face alone, of course he did this.
Okay, I like how he got arrested too. We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
But we could title this story, "Man Burns 110 Castles at Once." Okay, fine, they're bouncy castles. But so look, now to take a serious turn, even though it's a story about these bouncy houses or whatever they're called and stuff. But I was watching a movie with my daughter last night, and the theme of the movie was, no, just talk to your opponents. And it was this guy who was burning everything down, funny enough, right? And that you could just talk them into being nice guys. And I had to pause the movie and say, it's a sweet movie, I like it, and I'm glad we're watching it, but don't do that, okay? There are actually bad guys in the world. And so don't just listen to this movie and go and try to talk the bad guys into being good guys, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So you ain't gonna talk this guy into being a good guy. So this is clownorama, right? I mean, he's throwing the Molotov cocktails in there, and that massively endangers people's lives,
yeah,
let alone
absolutely.
burning down people's businesses and destroying their lives.
Yeah, robbing them of everything they've worked toward, and potentially hurting people in the process of doing it, potentially killing people. Like, what if there were people, trapped inside as the fire takes place? I mean, it's just absolutely disastrous. But luckily, he was charged with 11 counts of conspiracy to commit arson, and he was released on bail in 2017. Now, I want to move on from Cenk's downer point and talk a little bit about how he got arrested. So he failed to show up to court for for final directions hearing, a final directions hearing with his lawyer handing over a fake medical certificate. So he's supposed to show up to court. He doesn't. His lawyer shows up to court on his behalf and is like, "Here's a doctor's note for why he's not here," and it was totally fake. Okay.
Yeah. Shocking.
Okay, so a warrant was issued for his arrest, and he was found living in Perth. Interesting, running a fraudulent stamp operation under the name Paul Johnson before pleading guilty once extradited back to Victoria.
Running a fraudulent stamp operation under a different name. Of course, because there are bad guys in the world and crooks are gonna crook. And so they should be put him in a different kind of big house, if you will.
Yep. Now a judge has decided this week that he will serve up to 11 years in prison for the crimes he has committed.
Yeah, those are serious crimes, and I'm glad they caught him. And look, in America, whenever big business does any kind of crime, they get away with it. So, and there was an absurd case in Florida, who's Rick Scott, who's now the senator from Florida, where his company stole more money from Medicare than any company in American history, right? Yeah. And they convicted the company. They said the company is guilty, and the company had to admit that they did all of this, the literal robbery of the American people, right? And they said, but Rick Scott, the CEO, and none of the executives were guilty.
Because corporations are people, my friends, but people are not people.
Yeah,
my friends.
So corporations can be guilty, but they can't go to jail, and none of the people running the corporations are guilty. So Australia, this is a long way of saying thank you for punishing a white collar criminal. I mean, this guy wasn't a mastermind, obviously, and he's not running giant corporations, but at least he committed crimes for his business interests, and you guys actually delivered justice to him. And thank you.
Justice to him and the individual who set the fires, that Anderson guy. He has been, by the way, he was offered $2,000 to set each fire. But anyway, justice was served toward him as well because he is sentenced to 8.5 years in prison.
Yeah, don't burn people's houses down, even if they're bouncy houses.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, by the way, in the post game, we have another Australia criminal from the past.
Maybe, kind of.
Yeah. I love that story.
No, I love the story. I'm just saying, is he a criminal?
No, he is a criminal.
Okay, we'll talk about it. I'm super confused, but I love him because he's funny.
Okay, yes, and it turns out he's actually a bit of a mastermind. Anyways, if you're Australian, you know what Democracy Manifest is. We're gonna get into it. And you know how succulent Chinese meals can be.
I do.
So tyt.com/join. If you go, remember, get that super fun story as well as all of our fun stories. Or if you're on YouTube, you just hit the join button. Now, I have time to read just 1 or 2 comments. Skittlebutt Dragon Rasp says, did he let the air out of his competition? There you go, that's the kind of joke I should have made. Okay, what do you mean, Bart?
We like it, Bart.
Michael Richards says, you clearly don't understand the nuances of the bounce house industry. Okay, and Rob Fleming and I think Claire Ann just became members, so we appreciate it, guys. We'll see you in the postgame.
Hey everyone, Matteo Scarapore here, author of Black Buck, which is Shop TYT's first fiction book ever. I'm honored. So, Black Buck is about a young man named Darren who's living in